Welcome gamers, Hazardor here, and today I'm going to ask the question, is Overwatch the best FPS ever made? Now before you hit that dislike button, I'm just going to say, I'm not saying Overwatch is the best FPS ever made. I'm just raising up the debate and making this video to compare Overwatch to the best first person shooters the gaming industry has ever produced. Looking at the competition Overwatch has, first we need to start very retro, and let's start off with the original Doom. I've recently been playing through this on my Xbox One with a backwards compatibility app, and it's just so amazing. Just playing it, you really do realise how many first person shooters have taken inspiration from this game and really taken on a lot of ideas from this original Doom. Very similar to this is Wolfenstein 3D, where a lot of people did say this is where first person shooters were really born, and many people consider this the best first person shooter of all time. It's a cult classic, and Wolfenstein in general is just a very good game series. Moving on, we have GoldenEye 007. This is another game that is so massive for the first person shooter genre. Some people, just like Wolfenstein, consider this to be the best first person shooter of all time. Just looking at it, it hasn't aged very well, but what do you expect? The game's very old, the graphics look awful compared to nowadays, and the gun mechanics look all over the place, but mark my words, when this game came out, people were absolutely shocked at what a video game console could actually produce on a television screen. It's also worth mentioning Quake 3. I'm gonna be honest, I've not played the game myself personally, but basically everybody I've asked or looked into news articles or other top 10 FPS games of all time and stuff like this, a lot of people do mention Quake 3. And I'm just gonna have to put it here because simply, if so many people love this game, it's bound to be good. And there's also no doubt about it, this game had a massive impact on the first person shooter genre. Now moving away from the retro games, which honestly I don't know loads about, we're moving on to one of the best first person shooter series of all time, and that is Call of Duty. Now which is the best Call of Duty ever made? I think it comes down to personal preference, but most of the time it comes down to 3 picks. Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, the first Black Ops or Black Ops 2. These 4 games were absolutely revolutionary. I mean, maybe the classic Call of Duty, the first one that was ever made, a few like older generation people may enjoy that one the most, but the majority of people out there do remember these 4 titles the most. And for me personally, I preferred Modern Warfare 2 the most, but the game that had the biggest impact on the first person shooter genre was without a doubt Call of Duty 4. I think this game brought in killstreak for the first time ever, and everyone was so surprised that, like, you know what, I just got 5 kills and I got a reward for it. This is absolutely amazing. And in general, the game was so incredible, it just opened everybody's eyes to what the video game industry was actually capable of, and put first person shooters right on the face of the video game industry. Of course, we can't mention Call of Duty without mentioning Battlefield, and I think everybody would agree that Battlefield Bad Company 2 is the best game ever made in that series, but a lot of people do prefer BF3, some people prefer BF4, but I think there's one thing we can all agree on, and that is that the Battlefield series revolutionized FPS games, and more specifically in terms of having massive scale battles, 64 player games, 32 versus 32, people didn't believe this was actually capable of happening, so it was an eye-opener to everybody playing the series. And I think I would say my personal favourite of the series is possibly Battlefield 4, although Bad Company 2 was absolutely incredible. Another historic FPS series we definitely have to mention is of course Halo. I would say the best Halo has to come down to Combat Evolved or Halo 2. Halo 2 definitely for the multiplayer aspects, but the first Halo was so revolutionary as well. Every game I've mentioned so far I've kind of said the same thing, that they revolutionised FPS games, but honestly every single one of them did. Every single time one of these games came out, everybody was just eye-opened, they couldn't believe what they were witnessing, and they were just left with their jaws on the floor. So yeah, I definitely think Halo 2 needs to be mentioned in the best FPS games of all time, because so many people sunk so many hours into that game, and people simply couldn't get enough of that great multiplayer action. The last game series I'm going to have to mention is going to have to be Medal of Honor. Now this series is definitely not what it used to be, and it's been a while since we've had a good Medal of Honor game, but back in the day, this video game series was the hottest property in the video game market. It doesn't matter if you're speaking about Medal of Honor Frontlines or Medal of Honor Allied Assault, it doesn't matter which one you mention, both games are so historic video game titles, and for me personally, I barely played both of these games, but just looking at the industry and how these games affected it cannot be underestimated. These two definitely have to be mentioned as some of the best first-person shooters the game industry has ever given us. It's also worth noting titles like CSGO, for example. That game is still going strong and hard today. I mean, skins in that game cost thousands of dollars, so many people enjoy the game, so there's no doubt about it, CSGO has to be mentioned as one of the best games ever. Even BioShock, in my personal opinion, I absolutely love this game. It's not a pure first-person shooter, I mean the main concentration of the game, but it's definitely got first-person shooter mechanics in it, so I guess it is classified as an FPS. Even games like Far Cry 3, of course Vars, possibly the best video game villain of all time, he just makes the game absolutely amazing. The game as a whole, in my opinion, is the best Far Cry game ever made. And I mean, how on earth can we go through this video without mentioning Half-Life, especially Half-Life 2, and just looking at the speculation and hype surrounding whenever a Half-Life 3 will be announced just shows how good Half-Life 2 actually was. And people play that game almost like a religion to this day because it honestly was that good. And also, Team Fortress 2. A lot of people would even say that Overwatch is a clone of Team Fortress 2, and I do think that is a little bit extreme, but there's no doubt about it, Overwatch has taken inspiration from that game. And as a verdict, is Overwatch the best first-person shooter of all time? Personally, I wouldn't say so, no. But no doubt about it, it has to be one of the best FPS games of all time, especially a competitive FPS. And if you asked me what would be my favourite FPS of all time, I think it would be between 4 different games, and that is the original Doom, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Battlefield 4, and I may even put Overwatch into the equation. But I think despite Overwatch not being the best FPS game ever made, the game itself is definitely something special, and it's most definitely the most competitive first-person shooter on the consoles right now, and on the PC, it's one of the most competitive without a doubt. And one thing I must say is that people do need to stop comparing Overwatch to other games. Even though I've just done it in this video, so I'm kind of a hypocrite, people do need to stop saying, oh, Overwatch isn't that good because Team Fortress 2 exists. Just enjoy the masterpieces that we have in front of us and be happy that you are alive at a time where first-person shooters are all over the place and we have masterpieces left, right and centre. But anyway guys, thank you for watching, like, comment and subscribe for more.